Yeah.
Probably learned that from one of their relatives that learned that.
Yep.
Pin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's happy.
Yeah.
All right. Well. Do a graduation tonight. Oh, God.
Scholarships are always got. Have you been to that thing? That's the longest.
Yeah, once.
I got the Zoom once. That was.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Cole.
I'm gonna preface this by saying I have a graduation to get to tonight.
At what time do we need to have?
I need to leave here by 5:30 at the latest.
Oh, God.
We're good. I think we're gonna be done
I've got
well ahead of
I've got a
that.
baseball game in Padre at 6,
Okay.
so
So you turned your pumpkin at 5.
yeah.
So we all understand our mission
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, same boat.
All right, Chad. we're
Auction
ready when
here.
you are.
Call to order City of Port Aransas Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Thursday, May 23rd, 2024 at 3:01 PM. Citizen comments and reports. At this time, comments will be taken from the audience on any subject matter. Please limit comments to 3 minutes in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. The Planning and Zoning Commission may not discuss or take action on any item that has not been posted on the agenda.
Like this.
Item 3.1, discuss and take appropriate action to confirm that BFDP 24-000807 is consistent with the city's coastal management plan. The applicant proposes to continue beach maintenance activities, property location, Port Aransas City Beach.
All right, so this is a pretty dune permit that you've seen multiple times. Last time we did it was 2021, so this does expire at the a little bit later in 2024. So it's just time to renew it. Not much has changed. They used all of the same maintenance areas. We did get a new, it doesn't really have anything to do with the dune permit, but we do have a new lease. And we've got the permit that we need from the Army Corps of Engineers in order to put sand back at the water's edge. So all the city permits are in place, except for we need a new dune permit. Since it's submitted by the city engineer, we don't require any kind of engineer review, so you won't see that in your packet. This does still have to go to the general land office for them to give their comments on, and we'll go to city council after that.
And this is the taking the sargassum, dumping it in the dunes, taking the overloaded sand and putting it back out.
Right, and knock on wood, the seaweed's not terrible, but it is more than we've seen in years past.
It's washing the other.
Yep.
And we're preserving our beaches.
Correct.
I mean, you can look at them.
This is a good thing.
This is a good.
So I have a,
Do me a favor, can you speak in your microphone?
Yeah.
Thank
Sorry about that.
I have a question about that. I don't know if this is, anybody can answer this or not, but growing up down here, there wasn't a dune wall there. There weren't pilings there. It was a natural vegetative state, natural dunes. The idea was to build up that dune wall as a seawall, as a protection for the town. But when Harvey came, when Corpus Christi Bay came the other way, it trapped all the water in and flooded. Has there been any consideration of whether keeping that dune wall built up is actually a good thing or not?
I don't think that we've ever really explored maybe not conducting that activity the same way. That would be a discussion that would have to happen on a city engineer, city manager, city council kind of level.
Okay, just thought I'd throw that out there.
I would tell you,
Bothered me.
I bet you at the end of the day, it's the answer's without a doubt, yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, keep it maintained and
Yeah.
historically it's
Coming the other way,
right.
the normal way.
Right.
Great
Everybody
from
would-
the ocean.
But in the
Harvey
same
is one of
breath,
those.
like 63 Carla, it blew through Lake Jackson, Freeport, all the way up and just flooded Houston. And there wasn't a problem until all of that water in Houston came back down, and Dow Chemical had just finished their dam, which was their wall. And the water didn't happen until it got to Houston. It came back, and the joke is that the engineers created the true Lake Jackson because it flooded Freeport and Lake Jackson from behind. The real answer to that, and that's how they learn from it, is to have automatic pumps. And the way they got it out, we were in Lake Jackson, and we stayed there, which was stupid, but the water was right at our front porch, right? Next day, right at our front porch, next day. And the engineers at Dow finally realized it's not going anywhere. And so they created these automatic siphon conditions that, and they drained it all under control so they wouldn't flood Surfside and everything toward the water. But I think historically, it's better to have it.
Hope so.
But it would be nice to be able to drain the lake quicker, you know, in those kind of conditions.
If you look at just the aerial map from where the beach maintenance ends, and it keeps it from 1A south, or just go drive it. I mean, you can see where the beach on the north end, I mean, this may be because of the jetties, it could be for lots of reasons, but I've noticed it seems to get smaller there and bigger here. So it feels like something's working. The dunes in front of my house have gotten bigger over the years. Which like my view is getting increasingly less as the dunes grow, which is, you know, fine. I'd rather be there than not be there.
Right. Sorry, I know you guys got something to do.
No,
I
no.
sidetracked y'all there, so.
No, we're fine.
Tell you what, you'd be great. Have you ever driven the Blue Water Highway, Surfside, in the last year or two? It's, there is no dune.
There were no
And-
dunes up
and,
near, up
the,
north of Houston.
Where the beachfront, when I grew up there in the 70s as a senior, I mean, high school, early 70s. There's 3 roads that have been completely gone now. I mean, it's it's almost 2 football fields back, from, and it would have served them well if they maintained their.
Like we do. Yeah. Make a motion to approve item 3.1, confirm that item BFDP 24-000807 is consistent with the city's coastal management plan.
I second that motion.
Mike.
She's learning everybody's names.
Sorry.
Mike Dana's motion to approve. Stephen Wilson has seconded the motion.
You can just pick
Okay.
any order.
So Nick?
Yes.
Brett? Sorry, William Stryber?
Streeter.
Aye.
Straber?
Yes.
I'm sorry, thank
It's all
you.
right.
Craig Scott
Yes.
and Chad Schmeiss.
Yes.
We have to call them.
Oh, you have to call me even though they motioned. Okay, Mike Dayan
Yes.
and
Stephen Wilson.
Stephen Wilson.
Yes.
All right, so motion
Motion
carries.
carries.
3.2, discuss and take appropriate action to confirm that BFDP 23-000685 is consistent with the city's coastal management plan. The applicant proposes to remove sand that is encroached and reclaim the parking lot. Applicant Fred Samudio, Dunes Condominiums, property location 1000 Lantana Drive.
Okay, this one might look a little familiar to you guys. We looked at this back, I want to say June or July of last year. You guys passed it, went to the GLO. The GLO was not a big fan of where they were putting their mitigation. And after more careful consideration, staff seemed to come to the same agreement. So they have been spending some time moving their mitigation, which required some work with the county. You'll see in your packet also a letter from Connie Scott waiving their right to kind of monitor the dune permit activity, giving that all back to us. So that took some time. So this is the same dune permit with just a different mitigation location.
That
it's
the
really-
DLO now accepts.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're still reviewing this version of it, but they'll review that before council.
So this is an example of not only the city, but the DLO working together to come up with a solution.
Exactly,
And checks and balances working the way that they should.
exactly.
Okay.
Doesn't necessarily need to come back to you guys, but because we had to wait for the GLO to review it and not take it to council till next month, it was just cleaner to bring it completely back.
Sure.
So it's one that's previously approved. You'll see Jim's email in there. I highlighted the portion where he says they have no issue with the new location of mitigation.
Am I correct in the impacted cubic footage? I was trying to puzzle this all together. The impacted cubic footage exceeds the mitigated. I'm sorry, the impacted is less than the mitigated.
Correct.
If I'm adding those two.
Which is what we're always looking for.
This is what we're always looking for.
Yeah.
At least equal.
Yes,
We
equal,
prefer it
but
to be better.
mitigating more would be better.
Always
Yeah,
better.
Looks like they're like 1,500 over or something.
Yeah.
Good. That's actually a meaningful amount.
Right, and this was an example of kind of maintaining your flat areas. So a lot of this is just sand washed over onto their parking lot, but that sand washed over onto their parking lot has revegetated and is now dune
Ah,
on their parking lot.
gotcha.
Page 57. keeps blowing like this, we're gonna turn the whole
We're
town.
gonna have a
into
lot of
bit
those.
Crazy.
I got you. Okay.
Only about 150 pages.
Yeah. I'm really behind Sam.
Got it. Nick's got it for it.
If I remember correctly, the old site that they were gonna mitigate was to the south, right? Now they moved it to the north. of
Correct.
The okay.
Right,
Kind of-
yeah, they were kind of putting it right outside of their area.
Yeah.
Which would have been okay. It's kind of problematic with the turnout there from Lantana. So, you know, the GLO was right to call it out. And it's a better location now.
Any commissioners have any questions for staff? I invite a motion.
Make a motion for item 3.2 to confirm that BFDP 23-000685 is consistent with the city's coastal management plan.
Second that motion.
Mike Down has motion to approve. Stephen Wilson has seconded.
Greg
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Williams, Straver. Sorry. And I told myself not to do it.
It took me a minute.
That's-
too,
yes.
So don't worry.
All right, Mike Dan,
Yes.
Nick Lorette,
Yes.
Stephen Wilson,
Yes.
Chad Knightis,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 3.3, discuss and take action on PPLT and FPLT 24-000408 preliminary and final plat for Trojan Street subdivision, NUD lots 1A, 1B, and 2 through 16, block 1, applicant 502 South 12th Street LLC and Terra LLC. Did I say that halfway right?
They don't know either.
Property location 502 12th Street and Sea Island Drive, Trojan Street.
Okay, so this one is a little complicated. If you guys remember, some of you were on PNC when we passed the Trojan Street PUD, which is lots 1A through lot 8 of this plat that you're seeing here. That was the last PUD that was approved prior to the PUD not being an allowed development activity anymore. This portion that's being added to the PUD is currently a landlocked piece of property. Doesn't have access, can't get access from 12th Street due to the location of the house that's there, and doesn't have access from Trojan Street. So the developer is here proposing a variance that would allow the Trojan Street PUD to remain in place so that he can use that Trojan or that Sea Island Drive as access for the properties that he has to the north of that. All the properties to the north meet our current density guidelines, but obviously anytime we're redoing a plat, you have to vacate the previous plat, and we don't allow PUDs anymore. So the whole thing would be a variance. We've got approvals from our utilities and our engineers. Approval has been given to you guys as the handout there. So there's a revised preliminary plat. They had some issues with the drainage. The drainage was switched from an on-site detention to, pipes that go all the way out and all the way out to Trojan. So our city engineer, while he has expressed the need to really review that at the civil plan stage, is okay with the plan as generally proposed. We do have our applicants here.
So all the deficiencies for the preliminary on the May 17th, which is what we have here. This May 22nd letter now
Covers all of that.
trumps all this.
Yes.
Got it. Right. That piece is solved.
So I'll invite our applicants up now to speak towards their variance request.
Yes, okay.
Good afternoon, P and Z. Brandon Lafayette here. Y'all have all the paper in front of you, and as Nicole said, we're trying to develop the land in the back that's landlocked. The only access we can get is from Trojan. In my initial design, I was strictly going to develop that piece of property, but as Nicole stated, the CUD, the way to develop has been, that I could develop this has been removed. And so I feel I went above and actually purchased the land next to it to get enough to fall under the NUD category. So we have a way to do it. But as Nicole did state, The CUD has already been developed, the infrastructure's in place, the roads, the water lines, all that. So my ask is that we leave that alone just as it is. Everything else I'm developing is to current requirements, which is 5,000 square foot lots. And then mainly is accessing that piece of property so that I can use it. As of right now, I can't. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may or may not have.
So the variance request is predominantly based upon the fact that you don't have access to your property whatsoever.
Correct. That
And this is the
that's
hardship
majority.
that you're claiming,
Yes,
which in the past, I feel like we've felt that that is truly a hardship. This isn't necessarily monetary.
correct. No,
When we go past the access part, it looks like you're looking for one step beyond with respect to bringing in the NUD to the whole equation, without really a discernible path that we have in place right now in order to approve this with the utmost level of confidence. When we had spoken about this in the past, you had mentioned that timing was a major issue in doing this.
mhm,
And in subsequent research and discussions with city staff, it appears that some of the time concerns that you had mentioned might actually be a far rosier picture than what you were prognosticating.
correct.
Should we try to make sure that there's a path in place to where this can be approved? Has anyone shed light on that with you in any way, shape, or form?
They have,
Okay,
and it is nice that it might be coming available sooner than later.
sure. Well, as a matter of
keyword
fact,
right
it's
now-
on the next agenda.
And you're right.
Yeah,
You're
so
absolutely right.
it's here.
And for me, it's the might part.
Mhm.
You know, I've decided to bring it forward to say, look, I mean, I feel I have a right to the property, the right usage. You could say, well, we want you to wait until this comes. The future might produce something that gives us that easy access.
Mhm.
We're not guaranteed yet. And for me, I guess it's I would just say, is delaying my right to use my property okay? I don't know. I feel I have a justifiable hardship. If you don't, so be it. But that's kind of where I prefer going ahead and getting to use my property now instead of waiting till this may or may not pass, whether it's a month or 6 months or, you know, in
And,
hopes that it's sooner, but
right. And so when it comes to the timeline of this all, now knowing and acknowledging the fact that it might not be as late as December, it might be as soon as August,
Mhm.
when something's in place to where you could potentially go forth with all of your plans. Do you feel like the monetary damages that would be incurred are as significant as they would be if they were to be leading you towards an August solution versus a December solution? I guess this is the sticky part for us is
and
when it
you're-
becomes monetary,
right.
it's no longer a hardship for
Right,
us.
but this isn't a monetary issue. This is strictly access right now as current code states. Now, you could say, well, we're gonna push you off. That's not what we're here for. We're here because the current code doesn't give me an option. It just flat doesn't. So I'm asking for that variance now. Monetarily, whether it helps or not, you guys can't look at that and I'm not supposed to look at that, right? It's supposed to be strictly, this is what the code states. This is the ordinance that's in place. This is how I'm trying to abide by what's in place, you know, doing what I've done, talking with city manager, everyone to make sure I've done as much as I possibly can
Mhm.
to do this. And so, you know, monetarily out the window, it's just strictly, for me, I'm asking for access for the property.
And so if the variance for access is granted without amending the CUD or the NUD, would that give you what you need?
How do you mean?
So if we look at this strictly from an access standpoint, we currently have a system in place where we could grant a variance based upon the access. But it seems like this is more than just the access because it includes
So
the
you're
NUD.
speaking to the changes that are occurring in the PUD that's currently approved?
Correct.
Okay, So those changes are that the extension of that road that makes lot 8 a little bit smaller, and then the cutting of lot 1 into 2 separate lots.
So the cutting of lot 1 was done, and I apologize. I should have gotten a letter from that owner. It's a separate owner that has purchased that, and I told them what I was doing. And in this process, they said, hey, I've got a 10,000 plus square foot lot. I would like the opportunity to subdivide that for future use if I do or do not. And I said, well, and I spoke with city and said, you can do that down the road. It is a major plat, so you have to do this process like I'm doing. Or if you want, I'll throw that in now. And
Mhm.
we went to the surveyors, all that, got it all lined up, showed them that, and you'll see the lot is a little differently shaped. And I said, are y'all okay with this? This is how you have to do it. I went to the city, said, are y'all okay with this? And so that's why that one's oddly shaped. The road, and I brought this just in case you wanted to see, when we first submitted this, we didn't have that road access extension. We submitted it with an easement instead. And the city engineer told us that we needed to extend that road. And I've got
But
that
it was a
here
much better
if you want to see.
solution than,
Yes.
And we
than
now have
an access
a
easement.
city engineer approved drainage plan, correct? And because of this, that wouldn't preclude you from going out and moving dirt and filling in the low-lying areas in any way, shape, or form as early as next month, perhaps even.
We have a general approval, so they would still have to, they could submit without a plat, a permit application to go start site work, but they would have to submit that full drainage plan at that
Would-
point.
Okay. Which we don't quite
Which we
have.
still have to, they would still have to do, even if we approved this plat, they still have to go to that civil plan stage.
Sure.
Get that approved before they can start moving dirt.
Okay,
We don't have that at this point. We don't have a full set of civil plans yet.
sure.
We just have the city engineer approving that general drainage plan. Pretty detailed general
Sure.
drainage plan.
And from a granted, nobody's gonna be held to this, but from the standpoint of getting these final approved civil plans, what do we think that would take time-wise?
Honestly, for this whole deal, that's from a development standpoint, that's the longer play. I've got lots that are already developed, already in position. So this isn't when can I start moving dirt? It's more of I'm frozen basically until this is resolved, until I get an answer. And so that's why I'm requesting it now as opposed to waiting for an ordinance change, because I'm frozen and I can't do anything. And I feel I have the right as an owner, as a citizen of this town to say, I would like access to my land. Instead of waiting for a week or a month or 2 months or 3 months, I'd like it now
Yeah.
with the
Sure.
variance.
So I think we've got 2 options here. Obviously, you either approve or you don't approve a variance. I think this whole conversation is, if you guys didn't approve a variance, are there paths forward? I don't think it necessarily needs to play into the discussion that we have at this point, which is, let's look at what's been submitted and determine if we want to grant a variance, if we don't want to grant a variance, and if we want to move forward.
That's my questions.
In regards to the road extension,
Mhm.
Is there any more amplifying information from the city engineer on why they think that's a more elegant solution?
He reviewed it when it was just a easement, so that road stayed where it was, and then there was an easement through 3 additional lots. And he just said, well, if we're vacating the previous plat, why don't we extend that road? It's a much better option for everybody involved. It's a cleaner option for the city. It's a cleaner option for all the property owners. It's a better kind of, from a city planning standpoint, it's better to have the road there than to have the easement there. But that is a change from the previous CUD.
Yeah,
Now, that being said, it is a change from the previous CUD, but had that been included in the CUD at the time when CUDs were allowed, it would have been an allowed,
mhm.
they could have drawn the CUDs out the way that he is proposing it in this variance.
Sure.
The only sticking point is that we don't have the CUD available now.
And it reduces that lot size now. So,
I think it's a great solution. From everything we've talked about in the past, but I understand that the CUD's changed, but I mean, we live and breathe the size of the lots, and every lot in the CUD is the pad site, the actual size of the building site has not been compromised, and candidly, the other lots with the required 5,000 feet Looks like the perfect solution for an infill problem that's a mosquito pest. Otherwise, I think we should send it on to the city council.
Brandon, if the proposed ordinance changes do occur, will that change what you do moving forward?
Honestly, I don't know yet because
Assuming we grant the
mean,
variance.
if everything was exactly the way I want, absolutely.
So
But-
if you guys were to grant the variance, it doesn't matter about the ordinance changes because you grant the variance and he's allowed to do this. If you guys didn't grant the variance, he would be very concerned with what the ordinance changes were. We just don't know what those are yet.
But what it, I think what the point is that he'd go back to the drawing board. If this occurred and increased density, because he might make it into more lots.
The ordinance change that we're going to discuss
Yep.
immediately after that is not gonna have any kind of allowances for an increase in density. Now,
That doesn't really.
in the long
mathematically fall.
in the long term. It could be because we do need to completely look at chapter 21 and chapter 25 again, and it might be discussions that, vary from that 5,000 square foot lot now. And so it could be with the long-term ordinance changes that density could be affected, but the directive that we have from council is not a increased density kind of ordinance change. It's just to
I
kind of
understand that, but like you said, eventually, if you go from 5,000 to 3,000. Density increases
sure,
overall.
right?
I just need some direction on, there's one side where you're not increasing any dwelling units. So you're taking one lot down almost 1,100 square feet. And of that 1,100 square feet, there was one little strip that looks to be, I don't know,
I'd call it 10 feet.
8 to 10 feet wide. That's pretty much, that was a building, that was an easement or a building line anyway to start with. They're not increasing, well, but where in our rules does it allow us to reduce the size of a lot at this point in time that's under 5,000 square feet?
So by granting a variance in general,
The variance on the entry of the property, I mean, that's a no-brainer. That seems.
okay, so if you'll think about his variance request is asking you to completely wipe out the Trojan Street cut. Okay, that plat is vacated. It's a one lot. And he's asking you to put back the Trojan Street cut. So you are granting a variance, not just for the access, but for those smaller lots. Even though they already exist,
Legal
putting them
occupancy.
back in
Yeah.
there. They're just asking for that one last lot to be the same size as kind of the other lots next to it, rather than being a larger lot like it was before.
I think it just fits into a perfect solution to make this work. So I think we were both here when the CUD was created years ago. And I talk about this all the time because we're all passionate and love this town and want to come up with the right ideas, but we're not experts in the stuff that we're, always thinking about. And it's like, man, when we came up with a dwelling unit of 400 to 600 square feet, there was no science in it at all. It was just, 400 is too small. Oh, no, 600 is okay. My point is that there's no way we could have come up with this solution. I mean, this situation and gone, what if this happened? But I assure you, if it did, the intended purpose of that ordinance would be fine. I mean, now granted, not many times I can say this, but the intent of the CUD is this is just a kind of a hybrid CUD. And I understand it's not I know you're concerned, Chad.
Sure.
It's a check for you. So it's a yes or a no.
And that's it, because I don't take issue with any of it, right?
Right.
But
Yeah, I
I
think
take
we all
issue
want
with
it to work.
going against the rules.
But okay, and I accept that, but it's if he had 1,500 foot pad sites, we laugh at it. We didn't even come here. I don't even know if you want to do the percentage of, what is the percentage of the adjustments you made on the CUD to the overall existing CUD. It can't be more than 1%. And that's not a crisis in my book.
I don't see it. I don't see a crisis in any.
No, I don't either.
Figure out what box I can check.
Well, here's my last one. I think no matter what, we're appointed by the council and we appreciate them appointing us and we're here for the right reasons. This is the type of thing I always go, this is for the applicant, for the, everybody, this belongs in front of council, however we give them counsel. You know, on our opinion of it. The decision belongs to them, I think.
Reaver. You got anything?
Great discussion. Ready to move forward?
If you guys want, I can pull up 2160 in our ordinances that kind of lays out those rules, for lack of a better term, on granting variances. Sorry, internet's going a little slow. Okay, 2160. The portion of the ordinance talks about variances. So if you just go through this, obviously the approval of variance by both the commission and the council is required. Pecuniary hardship to the developer standing alone does not constitute an undue hardship. So I think that's always the first question to ask. Is this purely a monetary hardship? So that's the question that you guys have to answer yes or no to. If the answer is yes, and it's purely a monetary hardship, I don't feel like there's any reason to go any further down this variance path. If it is not purely a monetary hardship, then we go down to each of the findings. And those findings are A through B there. I'm sorry, A through D there.
How would not allowing the road extension deprive the developer of the reasonable use of his land? That was a question. Maybe Brandon, you should answer.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
I said, so, I mean, going just you've got the hardship of access for that whole property that right now is not broken into 7 pieces. It's
Right.
one piece of property. You've got the hardship, you own the driveway to the south. Makes total sense. If the roadway extension, because it is reducing the size of lot 8, the roadway extension weren't allowed, how would that deprive you reasonable use of your northern tract of property?
I would actually go back, I would take you down to D, where it says preventing orderly subdivision of other land or orderly subdivision. To me, the road makes it orderly, like that extension. So I can go in, I can make one big lot and I can put 2 houses. So now we've got 2 houses on one lot. That's not very clean. The extension of the road makes this a cleaner subdivision.
Fair enough.
And that's why, talking with Nicole, talking with the city, even again, I can present you the letter from March where the engineer said you need to extend the road. That makes the most sense in this scenario.
I talked to him this morning and that, of course, I went in all different directions too, so. He was thinking city streets, but okay, I mean, he's the best argument I've heard for the roadway extension.
It makes it clean and orderly for the whole, because if you look at the original CUD, that lot extended past the road. That's not very orderly. When that CUD was originally laid out, that extra 1,100 square feet of just I call it non-buildable area. I mean, you got a 10-foot wide section. What can you put in a 10-foot wide section now?
Exercise pool.
I can put that
Well,
anywhere.
to be fair, you could put a pool in the whole
Yeah,
section.
yeah. So to me,
Even in
that
setback.
wasn't.
Does it improve any access from a fire truck standpoint, anything in that regard?
Get you closer to that back line.
Yeah.
Good reason.
That's
I think,
yeah.
I think what's And I'll quit. I've already given my opinion, but I think we all think we should. If you just forget about the CUD, but we can't forget about the CUD, but the applicant owns both the CUD and the proposed new plat or the new addition. There's no argument that the private drive is legit and could service all of those lots. And the new property is to our current 5,000 square foot minimum. Let's move on. Let's approve this. Period. It fits. I mean, you can,
Do we have a motion, Nick?
I will be glad to, yeah.
Does anybody, any other commissioners have anything? to add? No.
So Nick's motion,
Not yet.
not yet, all right.
He's gonna. Unfortunately, he's gonna say it all.
Yeah, my hesitation was that, but
Chair, I'd like to recommend,
sense,
make a
you know?
motion to recommend approval from council for PPLT and FPLT 24000408 preliminary and final plat for Trojan Street subdivision as submitted.
Also. Nick Lorette has motioned to approve. Craig Scott has seconded.
All right, Stephen Wilson,
yes.
Nick Lorette,
Yes.
Mike Dayan,
Yes.
William Straber,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
and Chad Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I think even Chad one time told me he put Bill in his phone as Straber.
I
remember
it was like
say that.
ease,
Thank you, guys. In quotes. Actually, Dirk had shared his contact info with me, and that's how it came across.
So you say it correctly. Every time I think about which way to say your name, I always think about that story. And I say it right.
All right. 3.4, discuss and take appropriate action on city council's directive to amend chapters 21 and 25 to add exceptions to minimum lot requirements in specific circumstances.
Okay, so as we've kind of had these different variance issues that have come to us here at P and Z, plus some additional issues that have come to city staff based on the ordinance changes that happened in 2021. There definitely needs to be some kind of discussion on how to better help people. City council agreed that we should take our comprehensive plan that we just approved last year and kind of take those thoughts and ideas and transfer those into, you know, possible ordinance changes, seeing if we need to change anything that we're currently doing to more better match the comprehensive plan. So that's going to be our long-term goal. So we need to discuss both how to do that, the best way to kind of create a group to start looking at those things and start making those changes or those recommendations for changes to council. But in the meantime, city council all agreed that we should probably put in some language that maybe should have been added in 2021 to better protect these properties that are partially developed, so that we don't run into these ongoing issues and have people having to request variances to further develop their properties. So the paper that you guys have in front of you is language that I came up with based on kind of the directive that city council gave us. And we need to discuss and make recommendations on changes or pass this forward to them.
And further what you're saying, and I think we all feel like that first sentence in the variance language, or I guess it's the second or third sentence about pecuniary damage or hardship is not a hardship. In the end, you can make a money reason for anything. And that's what makes it hard for us as a commission when, I mean, under any scenario, I could always come up with a reason why it's all about
Sure.
money. And that makes it really hard for us to do our job and listen to these potential hardships and go through them. So I don't know if that's something that also needs to be reiterated when this is all happening. Not
I
to
mean,
get in the way.
it's in chapter 21, so we'll look at it when we look at everything else and see if maybe there's some adjustments or clear language we can put in there to make that job a little easier.
No doubt. Like the Sandhill thing is crazy because I can come up with a solution, it just costs money.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
that's-
so in essence, the variance procedure was kind of put in place in case you're in a subdivision and then you've got a river running through your property and you can't meet the guidelines because you've got this river running through your property. You've got a hardship there that's not of your own making. But I could argue that with enough money, you could reroute that river around your property and you could make that work. I don't think that was the spirit of the
I
variance
know,
request.
that's why it's
And so
bothersome.
that's why it does need to be clear.
Is that a state?
It is, it's,
They need to try harder.
yeah.
They really do. I
And so
mean, you
this
can't
language
dump
has
it.
been in here since 1996. So it could be that that was kind of the state
Might look at that.
language in 96
Yeah.
and nobody's ever updated it because variances are pretty rare around here
A
So
good
we'll look at
attorney
it.
could argue that either way forever.
for everything.
For any topic,
everything.
any
For
topic.
any variance request, I think you can make,
Yeah, that's exactly.
make that
That's,
argument.
that's what's been hanging us up on things. that
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have taken up as much time and effort as had lately is because that sentence, that makes it really hard to do our job.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Nicole.
That's great. So you guys have in front of you the language that I am using as a starting point.
What's our goal for today?
To look at this and see if we are kind of fixing some of the issues that we've heard and proposing a recommendation to council for possible first reading at their meeting.
So one part that just me reading through these comments and looking at them is the second and the fourth. I guess they're both big, long sentences. I feel like they're redundant but somewhat contradictory because one of them says, yeah, the minimum lot area shall not apply so long as the number of square feet per dwelling unit is not being reduced. But then one of them pretty much says it's okay as long as no new dwelling units are being produced. It seems like to me, the fourth one is a little more, I like it. It's a little more flexible. As long as you're not adding, I mean, similar to what we just talked about with extending this roadway. There wasn't an ask to add any more dwelling units there.
Right, so and these were specifically, that second one was in kind of reaction to the Moore Parkin plat that came to you guys last time to ask for a variance, the CUD that just wanted to flip over. And so they aren't adding any contiguous property, they aren't adding anything to it, they're just taking what they have and redoing it that way. And so I agree that they do seem a little redundant, but there wasn't a way to I needed to write two, one that's adding something to the property and one that's not adding something to the property.
The fourth sentence, red letter sentence. My suggestion would be when it deals with approved development. We're gonna lose it. Contiguous property owned by the developer. We need to have a firewall there because currently owned by the property or by the owner adjacent to the property. Something needs to be there to where they don't go buy the property next to it and replat it and then follow through. In other words, that would be a loophole. It has to be property that was
So,
currently owned by the developer and then they can expand on that property. They can't go and buy more property next to it and
think
follow.
that-
it.
but why,
Might be the point.
why
What is-
wouldn't you?
Yeah, why is
Because
that?
if you've got a developed property that's developed, it's very similar to Mr. Lafayette's variance that we just passed. So he had a property that was approved, that CUD was approved. He purchased property next door and added it to this plat, but the new property met current guidelines. So we're not saying that you can buy this new property, add it and meet the old guidelines. We're saying you can
That's-
buy this property,
Yes.
add it, and any new portion of it has to meet current guidelines.
Yes, and that wasn't clear to me.
So here is where it says, in connection with the replatted of a developed property, contiguous property owned by the developer may be added to that development and developed under current density guidelines, provided that no new dwelling units are being created in the existing portion. And his was the model for this portion of it.
I just read that differently, so.
Okay.
I'm trying to come up with. I understand you're relating this to each one of these current events that current applicants, and so we can relate it. What are we recommending to council other than this is a great starting point?
So
You know.
this top sheet is
Right.
actually an amendment to the
Okay,
ordinance.
all right, all right.
And so that is, I know I gave you that one a little bit ahead of time to
Yeah,
read, but
yeah.
this is what we're actually proposing, or what I'm actually proposing. And so just so that you guys are clear on kind of what I did was, I heard what council said and heard what council directed, and I came and looked at all of the kind of properties in Port Aransas that are currently developed, all your existing condo projects, properties that are around them, and really tried to look at, you know, is anybody else going to be facing the same issues that Bill Gavitt was facing, or that the Trojan Street CUD was facing, or that the Moore Harkin thing was facing. And I really tried to kind of nail down all of those issues so that we wouldn't be surprised. And then wrote these specifically for those issues that I think that council would like to allow, or that you guys would like to allow, but you couldn't because of the way our ordinance is currently written. And then worded this in a very careful manner so that nobody that city council wasn't intending to help could take advantage of this.
So what's the next step from here? City attorney reviews? and-
Right, so Mike is taking a look at it, and he doesn't really have any issues with this. He thinks that maybe we need to discuss defining what existing developed property means. So we're gonna have kind of some discussions with him and David on if we need to add that definition. That's pretty
What-
secondary to
In your
this.
thought process, what is existing developed?
I think that it's a very clear, like Webster's dictionary definition, existing and developed
God,
and
dang.
property.
It doesn't need infrastructure and building. It needs to be
I think it needs-
preliminary and final platted and.
I think if we were to define it, we would have to define it in very broad terms. The Moore Harkin, I would consider is an existing an existing development,
Agreed.
because they have an approved plat. Now, they haven't
In the
gotten
case
any
of Trojan Street,
infrastructure
they
in.
have an
Yeah.
existing
Right.
approved.
Trojan
Yeah.
Street is
Well,
an
and they've got
existing
infrastructure.
development. They've got an approved plat and there's
Infrastructure.
infrastructure in. So I think that if we do add a definition, which is kind of a secondary point to these real rules, it's gonna cover all of those different options.
I guess the council's asked for this, so.
Yeah.
It's not something we
Would
can kick
this
down the road.
help solve the Sandhill issue?
Yes, so probably that third bullet point. Was written with issues like Sandhills
Okay.
in mind. And that just says, in connection with the replat of a developed property, the developed portion of the property may be platted separately from the undeveloped portion, provided that proper access is provided for each of the developed units and the minimum lot area in place at the time of the development's initial approval is not reduced. So if this were to pass through all three readings and Sandhill were to bring us that plat back, I think that they're completely covered and you guys are covered and not requiring a variance because they meet that. They are taking the developed portion of their property.
Mhm.
They're, adding that little portion so that they have their full access there. And that's actually increasing the square footage per dwelling unit that they were initially approved on. So I think that offers you guys cover to approve that plat without a variance.
Okay.
And that same thing could happen like the condos out on 11th Street. They're set so far back and they were developed under those guidelines. So if they wanted to plat off a portion of that property or, have that platted in a different way, this would offer them a path to do that. I don't think that's going to be a goal of anybody's ever. So I'm not worried about that, but they're the ones that I think could take advantage of this.
You're talking like the ones next to Harkin Moore?
No, more like the Pelican
No,
CIO
all of them
Village.
got
They have
2 or 3
all that
acres.
vacant
Yeah.
land.
Further
Correct.
north. Okay.
Yeah,
So, yeah, you think this will help future-proof any of those issues that might come?
Right.
Yeah.
I think this is a very short-term solution to help some situations that we've seen. I think that we need a more comprehensive look with our comprehensive plan as kind of the backbone of our entire development code to make things better.
from us, I mean, is there a motion and a vote on, hey, we motion to send this?
Yep.
down the path?
Okay.
Yep, so
As
Can,
written.
can we
But-
say that we do it under the condition that it gets referred back to the comprehensive plan and things get amended?
So
its
city
entirety, or does
council
it just
kind of
be this?
agreed at their meeting before, my conversation with them was, hey, this is kind of what we're looking at. City staff would like to take your recommendations back to P and Z for a short-term solution, but also set up a process for a longer-term kind of ordinance, right? So,
So we
what
wouldn't-
we're looking here for you guys is a kind of a motion to move this language to city council, recommend approval on this kind of language if there's any changes that need to happen to city council. And then also a discussion on kind of how you foresee a bigger ordinance rewrite working out. If we need to set up a committee for that, how we should proceed.
Just take that second sentence out, and we could probably solve a lot of it.
Well, the problem is you want to write your ordinances in a way that people don't have to come and
Ask for variance. every
ask for
time.
variances.
Yeah.
Standard city planning is once lots and lots of people start coming, asking for a specific variance, a very common variance. You have to look at kind of your codes and see if what you're doing is not kind of meeting what people want to do with their property rights within reason.
We still have flexible unit development, right?
We do.
Which is kind of wide open.
Right, and maybe that needs some different guidelines, maybe that needs some different, maybe that needs some refining to make that fleshed out better so that it's not so subjective when it comes to you, but it's like, if you meet this, this, and this, you can do it prescriptively.
Mhm.
But if you want anything more than that, then it's that subjective process.
It's the most dangerous ordinance we have in our.
Flexible unit?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
sure.
mean, yeah,
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I
you,
mean,
you
it gives,
just,
it could give a road council all the power in the world to do whatever they want.
it really could.
Yeah.
So it's much better to have very
We have to have road
prescriptive.
council, so that's, but it just gives them 100% power to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's just not appropriate.
So honestly, I'm looking for if you guys see any loopholes in this, I would like to play devil's advocate and say if some really shady developer were to look at this, do you think that they could work out something that, just monetarily benefits them rather than doing what council is wanting to do and helping?
Subjective question. We gotta get this to them, and I think it's pretty cool, but it's just a starting point. That's the point. I think we
Right.
should
Yeah.
really realize it.
There's a
This
bigger
is just a
discussion.
Point of discussion.
This is sort of a
So,
Band-Aid until we can have that bigger
I'd
discussion.
suggest that we make some kind of a motion with this being a starting point, which I think you did a great job on it, Nicole, and then bring up what's up on the board, as far as how we come up with if it qualifies for a variance. Those are the two biggies, I think. But it's a starting point. I mean, there's nothing wrong with anything here, other than the more people that look at it, that council, attorneys, let's invite.
And city
Find an old
attorneys already looked at it.
Yeah, let's look at it.
First cut, and he's-
Right.
I like the fact that you did put it into one long sentence versus 20 pages.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's,
this looks like it's not much.
there's a lot in there. You read it over and over.
There's a lot in there. Every word, you cannot leave a word out. And I think if you add any more words, it makes it much more difficult.
Sure.
Commissioners have anything further to add? I invite a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed amendments as written. I guess with the additional recommendation that we form some type of committee or come up with a plan to comprehensively review all of this going forward after that's done.
Second.
Mike Diana's motion to approve with forward thinking, and Nick Lorette has seconded.
So with those motions, and if the vote carries, what we'll do is staff will put together a report based on your recommendation of
Mhm.
these to give to council at their next meeting.
Okay.
Right.
All right, Stephen Wilson,
Yes.
Nick Barrett,
Yes.
Mike Dayon,
Yes.
William Stevert,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
and Chad Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Planning and Zoning Commission comments and items for future consideration.
So 3 of you are up for reappointment. Talk to 2 of you that are going to reappoint and 1 that is not going to reappoint. So the 2 that are going to reappoint, you guys need to fill out applications and get those into Melinda pretty quickly. And then we need an additional member at some point in the future.
Or, can we go ahead and talk about this? Who's up?
I believe that
Craig and I are up for sure.
Am I not up?
I think it's Craig, Mike, and is it 4? Okay,
up-
maybe it's
I'm up
4.
too.
I apologize.
Four.
So it's 4.
Okay. Well,
Um,
it's 2 and 2. I mean, that's my score. I'm not gonna re-up.
right. And that's the one I was talking
Maybe.
about.
2 decades, 2 decades was enough.
And through the grapevine, I heard Craig would if he needed to, but if you found somebody that would take his place.
Yes, that's confirmed. If we can get some new blood in here, I
Okay.
think it'd be great for the city.
All right, Chad has agreed to.
Council
more
wants to keep me
torture.
around, I'll stay. If they don't want me
And
here
Mike
anymore.
has agreed to a little more torture as well. So what I'm asking for you 2 to do is fill in an application.
Yes, ma'am.
Tess, can you send those?
And what I'm asking everybody to do is help us find a couple of good members.
All over, well, I'm not all over it because I don't have any good ideas just yet, but.
I will start racking my brain. as
And
well.
I'd love, I mean, as we always do, I'd love some variety.
Mhm.
And we've been pretty good lately of keeping some variety in here.
Yep. I mean, it is a council decision, so they get to choose who they want, but we need to give them a pretty good pool of applicants. So everybody got homework.
I agree with that as well. All right, anybody else have anything? With that, I will call to adjourn the City of Port Aransas Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Thursday, May 23rd at 3:57 PM.
Oh, really?
There you go.
Nick, that's the last meeting. Nick was like, I do it.
I'll watch the meeting. We all watch it. Every single goodness and government up there right now.
I'm feeling.
I know what, I didn't handle it properly at our last, when we were appointed and we had new officers. I should have gone for 3 chairs and then instead of just.
Right?
I take it. Then my desk. drawer.
Everyone but you.
So next meeting, do they, when do they appoint?
We go to the next meeting.
You go
We're
all the way through
participating.
July.
I thought it was.
So you come at the beginning of the July meeting, we put the new people in and the old people go out. We add them up back and say thanks for
Thanks for everything.
50 years.
Don't let the door hit you.
Go roll it.
Solid 20.